Over the last few years, you've heard many fundraisers talk about building a culture of philanthropy. But is anything actually getting done? I mean, really, it's easy to talk about, but much harder to live it out. In today's podcast, Richard and I talk with Mark Rovner, founding principal of Sea Change. Sea Change is about helping nonprofits advance and reinvent cause-based communications. One of Mark's specialties is working with organizations to help them start building a culture of philanthropy. Mark will give you some great ideas on how you can help change the culture in your organization so that your donors become just as much a part of your mission as what you do every day to change the world.
Welcome to the Nothing But Major Gifts podcast from Veritas Group, featuring Richard Perry and Jeff Schreifels. Twice a month, we bring you the latest and best thinking about major gift fundraising, so you can develop authentic relationships with your major donors. Here are your hosts, Richard and Jeff.
Hey there. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. I have Richard Perry with me, and Richard, we have a great guest who's going to talk to us about creating a culture of philanthropy.
I really love this guy because he actually has he has a heart for donors and for charity work and for nonprofits and all that, and he understands culture.
Yeah.
And so this is going to be a lot of fun.
So joining us today is Mark Rovner. Mark is the founding principal of Sea Change and has over 30 years of experience working with nonprofit organizations to advance and in many cases reinvent cause-based communications and public engagement. You know, he's worked with all types of nonprofits like Sierra Club, Environmental Defense Fund, Nature Conservancy, Amnesty International. That's just to name a few. But listen to this. He also has a law degree from Georgetown. So watch out.
So we got to watch what we're saying.
This is even more interesting to me. A law degree from Georgetown, but a certificate in screenwriting from UCLA. I mean,
wow.
That's
Boy.
Who has that together, right?
That's amazing.
Mark does. So Mark, welcome. And thank you for joining us on the podcast today.
Thanks. And no worries about the law degree. The only thing I learned after 3 years in law school is that I don't really like lawyers.
Oh, well, okay. So I guess we're safe. So Mark, we often work with organizations whose major gift program is struggling. And, part of the reason for that is that they really don't value donors. I mean, which is always amazing to me because, Jeff, donors that's where the money comes from. And so it's like you would think like in the commercial world, the really good commercial companies value customers because that's where the money comes from.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, but leadership doesn't seem to understand how major gifts works.
Right.
And almost see it like it's like a necessary evil. And then all the departments in the organization are siloed and so on. So essentially there's a complete lack of a culture of philanthropy. So here's one question to start off with, Mark. How do you help organizations that are in this state?
You really have to start at the top, and you have to approach it. You have to try to swallow your frustration, and I have trouble swallowing my frustration with how things run, and try to be as compassionate as possible, because no one's doing bad things because they're bad people or they're motivated poorly, but an organization is a system. It's a complex system. It has a culture. It's usually not minded well because culture is complex and most leaders don't know how to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And so you have all those things you were talking about, the silos and the mythology about fundraising. And this is where I think I would point a little bit of a finger at EDs and boards who tend often to have kind of a bounty hunter mentality when they think about fundraising.
What do you mean by that? Yeah. What do you mean?
What I mean is they tell their development director or their NGOs, go bag me some money.
Yeah.
Go out in the woods with your musket and come back with some pelts.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't, for whatever reason, don't want to be bothered by the details, don't want to sit still, to be educated how fundraising works. And without sort of getting some change at the top, it's going to be really hard to change culture. And that's kind of why it's such a frustrating problem right now, and why not a lot of people have cracked it.
So Richard and I, we get a lot of calls, emails from major gift officers who basically tell us, all the problems of their nonprofit. There's no culture of philanthropy. They don't feel like they have any way to change it. Then their leaders are not embracing it. They don't support major gifts. So what do you say to a major gift officer in a state like that? And is there a way to from the grassroots make some kind of change in a nonprofit? Have you seen that?
I've seen efforts at it. I wish I had a success story to share. Let me do the easy scenario where you've got an MGO looking for a job.
Right.
And that would be really look for a tight connection between the ED and the development director, or the ED and whoever the MGO reports to. And not only look for a tight connection between them, but look for some commitment, real commitment on the part of the ED or CEO, and talk to them about what kind of pressure the board puts on them, because those are all really important tells. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the easy one. The harder one is you're in a job and for whatever reason you're not inclined to quit. I think there's some informal things you can do. I think you can talk to your counterparts who are equally affected by the lack of a supportive culture, the direct marketing people, the mid-level people, and see how much common ground there is. And my guess is once you start looking, you're going to find a lot of it. I think oftentimes, even within a fundraising operation, there's a certain amount of conflict that's been created by the structure, that's been created by bad attribution rules, that's been created by other forces. And if you can start kind of building unity around the key players within fundraising, I think that would be a good starting place.
So let me ask you a question on that, Mark. That sort of feels like a little internal uprising. Could that be perceived by leadership as like a revolution, a coup, or what are they trying to do?
There's a part of me that thinks, they should be upset. They should be scared because they're going to pay attention. Yeah. Depending on your level of risk aversion, you could just go out to lunch with them every couple of weeks for a while and structure the conversation. And it's like, what's working and what's not working, and how can we combine our forces to make things work better, and maybe slowly enlarge the circle and keep it a little bit under the radar. I personally tend towards being on the noisy side, but I know that sometimes isn't the best way to get something done.
Well, I mean, speaking of being on the noisy side, what we do in our organization is we do the analysis, the donor analysis. When you look at organizations and you basically say, okay, these donors, these good donors of yours are giving 40 to 60% less, and in one organization, it was like $148 million loss. That gets people's attention. So that's kind of our version of being noisy. Mm-hmm.
I like it. And maybe there is a way that analysis can be extended over sort of beyond major donors, because as you all know better than I, a lot of major donors come up through the ranks. They start as a $15 donor or $50 donor, or they go to an event, and looking at the totality of the pipeline, my guess is if they're losing $148 million in major gifts, they're losing a hell of a lot more in bequests and mid-level and major donors who should be major donors, but somehow fall by the wayside.
Well, wouldn't you say, Jeff, that the average on some of these smaller organizations, because that one that I quoted was a bigger organization, I mean, a really large organization out west, actually.
No, we easily see hundreds of thousands
or
to million dollars going away to attrition, value attrition. And that, Mark, that does create this shock to leaders. And they're like, of course, they're saying, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
And that's where we're like, well, you're not treating your donors right. Why aren't you treating your donors right? Well, we actually don't have a culture within the organization that looks as donors as part of our mission.
Yeah. So Mark, what are some of the practical steps that can be taken to building a culture of philanthropy? Like, how do you approach it?
Generally speaking, building a coalition that's committed to. Let me back up a step and say one of the reasons most organizations don't have a culture of philanthropy is that most organizations don't have a deliberate culture at all. Every organization has a culture, but if it's not being driven or guided from the top, it's more of a grassroots culture, and it's going to be a lot more random. And in my experience, and it sounds like yours, it's probably not going to be a culture that's supportive of fundraising.
Yeah.
So the first step is really to assess where your leaders are, where the board is, find the sympathetic board member, hire you guys to come in with the shock and awe numbers, show them the major donors they have that are giving 5 times more to the next organization down the street. That'll get the development committee's attention, I'm guessing. And then recognize you're in for a long, long process. Culture change is hard. It involves recognizing that you're in a complex situation, and complexity has a whole different set of rules than the kind of management that people have grown up with.
Yeah.
That's another big part of the problem is that the needs of leadership have evolved in ways that we don't really understand yet. Or most people don't understand yet.
You talked about how essentially this is a long process.
Mm-hmm.
Culture change. We also say this too in Major Gifts when we talk to leaders. Look, this is not going to happen overnight. This is a long process. In your experience in talking with leaders, do they embrace that? Or is that, it's like our culture overall is like immediate. Now, bring us the money. Everything is immediate. Even in the corporate culture, we got to, present quarterly profits. We've got to, there's no long-term thinking.
Well, there's no room for relationship, which we know is a long-term thing.
So what are you seeing, and how do you convince a leader to change that thinking?
I think we have to, and this is a challenge for all of us, we have to find more success stories.
Yeah.
We have to find more real life stories of where it's being done differently and how that's working out. I mean, in the corporate sector, everyone points to Zappos, and Zappos is probably a pretty good place to start, and it's wildly successful. I think you've just put your finger on part of the challenge, and it's equally true in the corporate sector. I don't imagine many people at Boeing got bonuses for pointing out safety problems. I don't imagine many people at Boeing got raises when they pointed out that hiring $8 an hour coders for a critical piece of software wasn't a great idea. But I'll bet the guy who saved a bunch of money by hiring those $8 an hour coders might have gotten a raise or a bonus.
Okay, so what's the principle there? What are you saying there, Mark?
The principle is that you have a complex system, and you have rewards incentives that are built in to the structure, that are built into the everyday behaviors of people, that are built into attitudes, what Robert Gass calls the hearts and minds factor. And you have to take a step back. I know the business school people say you've got to stand on the balcony, which is probably a pretty good metaphor. You've got to really take a holistic view of this system that you're part of, and you have to look at structure. You have to look at, and in our context, in the fundraising context, you have to look at the org chart. You have to look at how projections are made or increased. You have to look at those hearts and minds issues, like this notion that fundraising is dirty. You have to look at the consequences of treating donors like ATM machines, and you have to kind of take it all in as a whole, and then that's the easy part. The hard part is, how do you nudge a complex system? Because the problem with complex systems is you don't have the simple, straightforward rules of cause and effect. It's not like rebuilding a carburetor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So do you have like an example of an organization that struggled with the culture of philanthropy?
Yeah, inspire us.
Yeah, like how just tell us, like, how did it work? I mean, it'd be great to know.
We've been I honestly can't tell you an organization that went from having a bad culture to having good culture. I can point out a couple of organizations that have a good culture and a supportive culture. One organization we work with, and by the way, we did not contribute to this. This is just a quality that makes them a delight to work with. But Share Our Strength, which is a fairly well-known, large anti-poverty, anti-hunger nonprofit. They have a deliberate culture. It's a culture of cooperation and kindness. The leaders walk their talk, which, by the way, is the single biggest problem, I think, with culture change initiatives is someone comes up with a lot of high sounding language and then the leaders do the opposite. So Share Our Strength, people actually live by those values of kindness and cooperation and collaboration. And it shows. People say hi to you in the halls.
That's true.
And that extends out to their fundraising, and it extends out to their board relationships. So it's not impossible.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
Yeah.
It's not normal in the sense of it's not what you see every day. And as you pointed out, it's equally a problem in the private sector.
Yeah. That's funny you mentioned them. We actually started with them, their mid-level program, and helped build that for them over the last couple of years. And it's true. Walking through their hallway, you do get a different feeling there about how this place works. And people are kind. It's really true what you just said. So
if you take all of those principles down to the individual level, though, I think what we're saying is for the person listening to this podcast is you can start the process of being part of a culture of philanthropy by being authentic, by being kind, by being genuine, by caring for the donor, and then sort of spreading that virus throughout the organization.
And then bring Sea Change in to help you.
Exactly.
Bring Mark
or you
in.
guys. You guys did a great job with the mid-level program at No Kid Hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. So, let's have so if you're listening to this and you're saying, gosh, we need a change.
Yeah.
And you know that leadership will be open to it. You need to call Mark.
Exactly.
You need to get a hold of him and go to their website at www.seachangestrategies.com. That's C-Change, S-E-A, change, strategies.com, and get a hold of them. Because, gosh, it would be so much easier to do our work in Major Gifts if we could come into an organization who already embraces this culture of philanthropy, understands that donors are part of their mission.
Yep.
And
Jeff, if everyone listening here brought Mark in to kind of even start the process,
oh my gosh,
it would start to change the not only the culture but the economics of the organization.
Absolutely,
the attrition rates, the value attrition rates or retention rates, and it would substantially change everything.
Yeah,
it would.
And also today, we're going to offer you a free white paper called Building a Culture of Philanthropy. So you can go to our website at veritasgroup.com and you can click on our free resources and download right there our Culture of Philanthropy white paper. Many people have used it, and there's a lot of good practical ideas that even Mark has just talked about. But you could start that process. But Richard, I really liked how you brought it down to the individual level.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like there's this corporate stuff we've got to do, but as an individual, what can we control ourselves? And I just
exactly,
I love that.
Yeah,
that really spoke to me too.
Yeah,
you may be working in an a-hole culture, but you don't have to give into it.
That's right.
No,
that's right.
You could be different. You could be a light in the darkness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which we purpose to be every day in our organization. And we ask our people to be that way.
Yeah.
And we ask everybody that is actually signing up for our blogs and all that stuff to be that change.
Yeah.
Because that's how we affect a culture and society towards a positive thing.
Well said.
Mark, thank you so much for being with us today. And gosh, I can't wait to have you on again.
I know.
There's so much we could talk about.
I mean, Mark has more. I mean, we've got to get him back.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
Thank you, Mark.
You bet. And it was great talking to you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the Nothing But Major Gifts podcast from Veritas Group. Richard and Jeff also write an ongoing blog that you can subscribe to for free at veritasgroup.com. Please join us again next time.